Hey everybody, welcome back to the shop. Today it is time to give my final opinion about the Qidi Plus 4. As you can see, we have a total of 520 hours with the longest print job going to be 24 hours plus. So it's safe to say that I have pushed this system to its limits to see what is going to be good, not so good, and what I would like to see changed in the next iterations. All the products that you're going to see are provided by the company. We have filament and flex plates from 3DJ, and we have the printer from Qidi. My review policy will be down below. Now, some of the positive things about this printer: it is fast. You can virtually print every material on the world on this machine. But in my opinion, you are not here for all the things I like about the printer. You want to know what I don't like about it. Believe it or not, in the beginning we had again a lot of problems with the chamber heater. We had some safety triggers because the bed was too low, was blocking off the exit of the hot air. We also have a very bad design, in my opinion, of the heater itself. Now in the latest firmware they have fixed that by just turning off the heater altogether when it drops below. I thought it was going to be 270 millimeters. So once you go down below the 270 millimeters, this heater will turn off. They made this hole a lot smaller because people were complaining that it was too loud. Now, with the smaller hole, they had to do a new update because they had a new safety failure, because the temperature inside, believe it or not, there is a probe inside that is measuring if everything is going to get too hot, so you don't get a thermal runaway. While that safety trigger was also triggered because you had the choked off design of their newest iterations. The newest update just bumped the safety limit higher over 100 degrees. So in my opinion, you're still better off printing this thing, because with this unit, you will not reach 80 degrees to begin with. We can also see a very high failure rate, not on the heater core itself, but the fan that is sitting in there. So they also changed out the fan, but we also could see that quite a lot of people have dead fans sitting. It is starting with a rumbling noise, then it's going to sound really awful, and then it just dies. So even right now, changing out the fans and all of that, we can see a higher than normal failure rate on the chamber heater. And then actually we are evolving to what is powering this heater, which is going to be the SSR unit right here in the back. People like me in Europe living in a 220 volt circuit didn't experience any problems. However, the first videos popped up on YouTube and Reddit from Americans on 110 volt with the SSR just completely melting or smoking out. I investigated the issue as far as I could because I don't have 110 volts, and one of my colleagues, 3D Musketeers, did a live test, and we could see that also his unit got well over 100 degrees Celsius. Big whoopsie, the SSR was faulty. Now the initial response of Qidi left a lot to be desired, in my opinion. I was really starting to get angry because they were minimizing the problems on 110 volts until 3D Musketeers did a second one on the revision of the first SSR board. I think we had in total 4 revisions of the SSR board until we got to the last board that is finally fixing the freaking problem. Now, most of these units are shipped with the new SSR. If you are still in the United States or you are on a 110 volt circuit, make sure to open up the back and check if you have the new SSR. But apparently, if you are going to mail the serial number of this printer, they can look it up for you if you have the wrong SSR, and they will ship you a new one. Then let's talk about VFA. Qidi has done something that is probably going to get to all the printers in the future. They have changed the belts with a very tight pitch, meaning that the motors have to spin up a lot more to get the same speed, which also means that we are experiencing as good as no of VFA in this machine. So the new belts used by Qidi seems to be a one-off. Qidi is the only one using those belts, and after 500 hours of testing, we can see that most of the prints basically have no VFA. We also have seen a few units that have terrible VFA, and no matter what that person did, there was no fix for it. I think it was Spooknik from the Discord. Your unit was absolutely terrible, and whatever he did, the problem never went away. Qidi offered to refund him the unit, he shipped it back, he got a new unit, and that unit was spot on. Then we made a few videos on the loose bearing. Believe it or not, there are still people receiving printers that have the loose bearing issue. So in my opinion, it is not fixed. The design of the print had leaves a lot to be desired because the lower bearing is just floating in thin air with a cushion of glue to keep it in there from rattling. So a redesign of the housing is really necessary. They are apparently not planning to do so. I have a video. If you have the loose bearing, to fix it permanently. Qidi wants you to bolt in 2 bolts in the back. I just add a good dot of high temp silicone, so my unit now is rock solid. Still an issue, I can still see it weakly popping up that somebody had a loose bearing. It is very easy to spot. It starts with a rattling. If you hear a rattling, just grab your print head, and if you can twist it and you can see the print head moving over the linear rod, then you, sir, have a loose bearing. Here are the videos to fix it. If you are one of those unfortunate people, it is easy to fix, however. Then let's talk about the bed calibration. The first time you want to do it manually. It is going to probe all the corners with a sheet of paper. You are going to tram the bed to get it as flat as possible, and the result is actually pretty good. Now, however, on my unit, it seems to be a mixed bag. It is wandering all over the place. Just trying to remove the flex plate from its magnet is enough to tilt the bed, that in the next one, if I'm not just giving it a push or letting it drop all the way down, that I can see it in my mesh that the bed is tilting. It is not consistent, which means that, yeah, I never know where the bed is going to sit. Now, however, the worst case I have ever seen is going to be a 0.4 millimeter over the complete bed. But on a good level bed, you could see anywhere between 0.1 and 0.2, which is what I see in the community to be the case. Most of the people are between there. But like I said, it is definitely a problem in my unit that if I don't give it a little push or drop it down below, that after a while, if I'm being too rough to get these plates off, yeah, then I'm starting to see that my bed is tilted in one way or another. So right now it is riding on 4 smooth rods in the corners, and then we have a ball screw in the middle on each side with a motor on each side. It is probably going to be better to have a motor and a rod on every corner so we can do some compensation, because right now in my unit I can see the bed is all over the place. Unfortunately, it is still within an acceptable range, which means that most of my prints will not fail. But I have some prints right here in front of me that I have some of those issues, and I'm going to grab one to show you. First of all, these are all the same files. The only thing I did was just press reprint, and we can see that we have a different result in the back, which is going to be right over here. So this one seems to be pretty normal. We can see the pattern from the 3D Jake flex plate. This is a perfect first layer. And the next one in my hand is printed with the same file. This is just a reprint, and we can see that we are starting to have voids between the layers. We can still see the faint checkering we had on the flex plate, but yeah, you can see this is a terrible first layer. So this is a great example of just removing the flex plate and your next print not having a good bed mesh because you are over 0.4, and we can see that some of these pieces have suffered from an inconsistent first layer. Right now there is no solution. The only thing I found is to drop the bed completely down so it has a fresh restart, and then it will be perfect again. I have seen, however, some printers implementing something that is just dropping the bed to the lowest point to level it before it is going to print. So maybe that is something they can add in the next firmware, that the print bed drops all the way down first before it initializes its first print. This will take away all the inconsistencies, because under the bed there are some spaces that will press on the metal plate on the bottom, making the build plate completely flat. So Qidi, if you want to fix this problem for free, let the bed drop all the way down before every print. The next thing I want to complain about is that they use too much of those self-tapping screws into plastic. The complete print head is fastened with 4 self-tapping screws. While I was dinking around with my bearing, I have opened this shell about 4 to 5 times, stripping out 2 of them, which means that the complete housing was sitting loose because the screw just pulled out of the plastic. This is unfortunately a trend I can see in the complete printer. So if you want to do regular maintenance, you will have to remove things that are going to be threaded in plastic. I would have preferred to see bolts that were in some injection molded threads. So this is an example of what I mean. I have recently built the Rhetoric VCore 4, and there every bolt is going to get inserted in one of those brass thingies. You melt it into your plastic so that if you are having a mechanical connection, it is not going to be a screw into plastic, which means that if you are going to remove it and assemble it again, that the chances of you stripping the thread is basically 0. Now with the Qidi Plus 4, I'm pretty scared of disassembling this printer, because every time you will loosen that screw, yeah, you run the chance of just ruin the threads of the plastic. So Qidi, another suggestion for you. I would like to see these things injection molded in the first place, so everything that is going to be assembled is inserted in brass instead of self-tapping screws in plastic. This is going to prolong the life of this printer. Right now it feels a little bit more throwaway because yeah, if you strip something out, you are in real pickle and the only thing you can do is drill it out and then putting in a bigger screw, which I have done in the printhead. That also failed. And the last thing that I have done is just drill it straight through, then put in a bolt with a nut on the other side, so my printhead will never come apart again without me removing the bolt with the nut on the other side. Then I want to talk about all the updates. There have been plenty of updates on this system. Some of them were really necessary, others were just to try and circle around a problem that they can't fix without shipping you new parts. So one of the things is going to be the PWM signal of the heater that is in here. What does the PWM setting do? It is just deciding how fast the unit in here is going to heat up and with how much power. Now, with the latest update, the PWM signal is set to 0.4, which meant for my unit that the heater in here only was heating for under 200 watts, which was basically nothing. So if I wanted to heat my chamber up, it would take me almost an hour to get it even at 60 degrees. Without the bed, it wasn't even possible. I also made a video about that. I will link the playlist right over there. I have set mine back to 0.6, which gave me around 400 watts of heating output. We could also see in the Discord that a lot of people were having very wild results going all over the place with the 0.4. We could see people with over 400 watts of heating on just 0.4, and then my unit was way under 200 watts, basically making this a paperweight. So all the things we have seen right now about the SSR and the chamber heater are all things to try and get past the design issues. While with the SSR, they couldn't fix it in firmware. The heater inside, yeah, it is still a crap design that they try to fix with firmware. Now, fortunately, right now, it is safe to use everything. So yeah, let's leave it with that. Then there's also a Hotend fan right in here. The Hotend fan is offset from the heater block, which is crazy stupid, right? So you have the heater block of your nozzle, you have the fan, and normally these are mounted in one straight line. Now, with the Qidi Plus 4, this fan has been mounted like this, making it super inefficient. There's also a file that you can download to print a new bracket for the fan, and then it is nice in line with the heatsink, which also helped a few people. So if you're into that, that is one of those mods that you can do. Then we had some issues with the Wi-Fi. On the back of this printer is going to be this metal panel with a little dinky fan right over here. Now behind this metal panel is going to be the motherboard of this system with a dongle in there that is going to be a Wi-Fi dongle. Apparently this is blocking way too much of the signal, and even my printer sitting right over there, and my Wi-Fi access point is not even 4 meters away, and it is just a straight signal. I lost frames on the webcam and I could only run about 2 to 3 FPS on the webcam. Now, one thing you can do is just open up this panel, remove the Wi-Fi dongle and put it in the USB port on top. And then we had great results with the Wi-Fi. But there is also a mod you can do, changing out this plate with something 3D printed. It is not only for the signal, but we have another problem with this plate, which is what I'm going to tell you right now. Now it's time to talk about upgrades. The only real upgrade I think you should do is replace the mainboard cooler by a bigger one. And for that, we are going to need the part that is inside the printer. So this part has been printed with PCTG on the flex plate of 3D Jake. And this is what it looks like. The reason I use PCTG is because it handles temperatures a little bit better than PLA and the regular PETG. You can print it very hot and you can use a cooling fan. And like you can see, we have a big hole right over here. This is to mount the cooling fan on it, but for that we need to be on the back side. And like I said, you can see the texturing of the flex plate. It looks really cool. Before I remove the back panel and replace it with a bigger fan, let's see what the issue is. So for the test, we are going to install the top panel. And I'm just going to give it a little preheat, let's say 90 on the build plate and 65 on the chamber heater. While I have been heating up the chamber, I mounted the fan on the replacement plate, but first let's look what the temperatures are. There we have it. We have put on a connector. Now it's time to connect it to the printer, mount the plate, and look what changed. The system is on full whack, bed temperature 110, the heated chamber 65 degrees, and this is one of those other free upgrades that I'm going to show you. You just need a snipper. If you want to have more airflow, you can just jam it in there, give it a little snip like that, and you can open up the hole bigger because in the middle there is a massive plate blocking everything up, and the fact that you are going to put your finger in here while it is printing and sitting against the wall is so low. Yeah, in my opinion, you can just remove it. Just be careful, do not put your pokey stuff in there. The same with the fan. The fan came with a little shroud designed in there. I removed the shroud. This has been way over 10 minutes, and you can see that we didn't even touch the 60 degrees. The temperatures of the heated bed are 110. The chamber heater is at 50 C right now. So yeah, this is a dramatic change in stepper temperatures. So this is a neat little upgrade you can do. And then lastly, this is going to be the final upgrade that I would recommend you to do. Is going to be some sort of a poop slide. Like you can see, this is all the poop I collected in the 500 hours I used the machine. This has been printed with Zhanghe high-speed filament. It is looking absolutely awesome. It is going to waste a lot of filament trying to print it. There are plenty of other designs. Just go on printables or your favorite site and put in Qidi Plus for poop slide. This is going to change when the AMS is coming out. You will generate a lot more poop, but the AMS isn't out. We will still have to wait for the Qidi box, but right now the pooping is at the absolute minimum. I don't think it's a real problem right now. Then a few minutes ago we also talked about the SSR issue. I'm living in Europe, so I have 220 volts at my disposal, but just for shits and giggles I will remove the back panel and let's see what the SSR looks like after 500 hours. To remove the back panel you have to remove a bunch of screws over here. Most of the time people take out this back panel. Now I'm going to just turn it off. Then you want to remove the back panel right over here. You want to make absolutely sure that your printer is unplugged and you are not on mains voltage, because you have to put your hands in there. You have to push something over here in order to make it pop out. Give it a good little yank and here is the panel. So this is the back of the printer. And right over here behind this plastic cover is the SSR, the original one that burned out at 120 volts. Now I'm going to remove mine and see if it's actually not a problem even after 500 hours of printing time. Now this is going to be for the chamber heater, but I think for the 500 hours I did the heating, at least 300 of them were with the chamber heater on. Now, in my opinion, you can just leave this cover away. It is just obstructing the cooling you could potentially have of the SSR unit. Now, the first thing I can see is we can see absolutely zero discoloring right here on the SSR module itself. We also have right here in the middle, this is going to be the part that was problematic and was starting to discolor. This just looks as new as it came from the factory. So I can definitely say that at 220 volts, it is not an issue, not even slightly. So I'm going to toss the cover away. I think it's pointless. You will never reach with your fingers inside, and it is going to enable it to cool even better. Now we have the upgraded fan installed in the back. This is what my SSR looks like after 500 hours of use, which is probably going to be 300 hours of actual heating cycles. Like some other people already mentioned, it is an absolute rat's nest of cables. The last thing I want to do before I put the panel back on is check if we have any loose screws after 500 hours of print use. Now the frame bolts all seem to be very tight. Let's check the main wiring. I checked all the main wiring. It looks like everything is nice and tight. Now I could go ahead and joke about everybody on 110 volt that it's time to grow up and go to 220 volts. This should never have happened, and especially the way they addressed it in the beginning was absolutely awful. Now, luckily, we have also seen that the issue has been resolved. The people have a safe system right now, and the only thing we can do right now is just enjoy the printer. There we have it. Everything is back on. The only thing we have to do is put on the spool holder, which is going to slot in right here, and we can go back to printing. Talking about printing, let's look at some of the latest prints I have done on the Qidi Plus 4. Alright, so now it's time to talk about print quality. All the filaments I'm going to show you are provided by 3D Jake. Big shout out 3D Jake, thank you for sending those materials over for me to test out on the Qidi Plus 4. First of all, we have ABS. This right over here is a functional part that I'm going to gift to somebody in my friend group. This has been printed on the 3D Jake flex plate and it turned out great. We can see those two are perfectly fine. We can see the nice patterning that is on the back. Other than that, the top layers all look perfectly fine. This has been printed at about 250 millimeters a second. If we look at it from the side, we can see we have nice layer stacking. We have barely any peeling going on. We see right over here we have the slightest bit of warping on the corners, but the 3D Jake ABS absolutely held very well. These are very hard prints to do. ABS and long flat things are not a good mix together. We have other filaments that I use that just warp very happily off the build plate when we do stuff like this. So this is a big kudos to the 3D Jake ABS. It just held up perfectly fine. It is very low warping. And it's not only that, the heated build chamber absolutely has an influence on that. So you will need to use filament that acts really well when you are printing it, even in a hot environment. Now, these little knickknacks are nothing really special. The coolest part is going to be this thing. This right here is PCTG from 3D Jake. For me, it is a fairly new filament. It acts a little bit like a PLA, which means that I could use my cooling fan on this part. I ran 100% cooling fan on this, but you have to print it at temperatures that are going to be closer to ABS. So this has been printed on a bed temperature 90 degrees with a nozzle temperature of 270 degrees. You don't need any enclosure really to print this, but I have set it at 30 degrees Celsius, and just by the ambient temperature rising from the heated bed, I could see that this has been printed at a stable temperature around 45 degrees Celsius. Now the results look really amazing. A filament that needs to be printed hot, but still can be cooled with airflow, and here are the results. Looking at the overhangs, we could see it actually held up pretty fine. We see right over here that the support is actually not that bad being printed that hot. We cannot forget we printed at 270 degrees Celsius. The only thing we can see, and this is going to be an oopsie from the slicer, we didn't support this part right here enough, so we lost the details, so we cannot place a magnet right over here. We also had the same thing going on the other side right over here. This part failed a little bit just because we didn't support it well enough. But the general consensus on the print is going to be that it is looking really, really good. So I redid the print, and right over here is going to be the final result of the Deadpool mask that I have printed. This piece right over here is also PCTG, but the black one, we also can see that the quality is very nice. We have a nice shiny finish. There is a bit of a texturing on this. This is looking really, really neat. On the back side, we can also see the overhangs were actually pretty fine. We didn't lose a lot of details. We did, however, right over here had some, not sure what it is. We lost some extrusion at certain points. We can also see the same thing happening right over there. This right over here is going to be the finished piece, completely printed with PCTG filament from 3D Jake, and the results are absolutely awesome. We had a little bit of not sure what this is going to be. We had some extrusion issues right over here. Not sure what happened there. But this is the only part that I could blame on this whole print. Reprint of this would take me about 100 grams. But I like to be honest, you could see the Qidi screwed up right over here, but still, this is going to be the result of the Deadpool mask. This is one of the sides. We also see the artifacting right over here. Not sure if it's going to be heat creep or anything like that, but but still over here we can see we have a very lovely result with the PCTG red from 3D Jake. Now, fun thing to know, this was the first print, and because I was trying to fit it on my head just like this, I dropped this freaking thing and it broke right here half in the middle. Did you spot that problem? I don't think so. So like you can see, I glued it up right over here. This is the glue joint right over here. You can barely see that it is glued up. So gluing PCTG with super glue doesn't seem to be a problem, and it is back to very strong result. So it is going to be fairly easy to print. It is also going to be fairly easy to glue up. So this is a good result of the printer. One other project I have done that I couldn't talk about until now is that I have worked with one of the biggest case models of Belgium. He is one of the biggest of the whole world. He is in the top 3 of the best case models of the world. We have done a massive capsule, like he called it, a massive capsule, which are 2 shells made out of ABS. I'm going to link the video down below. So everything you see in that video is printed by yours truly. So this thing is an absolute ABS junkie machine. So if you're like me and you like ABS stuff, then this is absolutely the machine that you want. Now, we just talked about the print experience and we could see that the print quality is actually not that bad. We could see, however, that we had some weird little artifacts, which brings me to the next point. That is going to be heat creep. What I just told you is that we had some weird artifacting on the prints of my Deadpool helmet. Well, in fact, I think I have some heat creep. So you can see right over here, these are symptoms of heat creep. And believe it or not, this is the next whoopsie from Qidi. A bunch of people received nozzles without a ceramic heat break. Months before the official release of the Qidi Plus 4, I received a pamphlet. In that pamphlet that you see right now, you can see they were planning all along to use ceramic heat breaks. I could see people post on the Facebook groups, the Reddits, the Discords that they have heat creep. They pulled out the nozzle and we could see that they don't have a ceramic throat but a steel throat. Now, I did a little lookup. If you remove the front cover and you look from the side, you can see if you have the metal or ceramic heat break. Well, brother, I have been using this for 500 hours and it only took me until this print to see that I have a steel nozzle. Don't believe me? Let me show you. Now, while the printer is heating up, I think it's really weird. They have showed me a presentation that were proving that they were doing ceramic heat breaks and still there were a bunch of people receiving one without one. So what's up with that, Qidi? Even I got one as a reviewer. What the hell is going on? Now, to be fair, in the whole 500 hours of printing that I have done, I also did a bunch of PLA printing. This machine next to me, the Mega Smoother V2, is one of those machines that has been mostly printed with the Qidi Plus 4. We had zero heat creep. I did, however, remove the top panel like they instructed. I had no issues whatsoever with the steel heat break. So, is it a big issue? Not really, apparently. But are they lying? Most definitely yes. Here is the nozzle out of my Qidi Plus 4. This has been a review unit which has been sent out of the warehouse in Europe, which means that everybody with the day 1 unit is going to have a Hotend without a ceramic heat break. Like you can see, this is not ceramic, this is steel. So like you can see, it is definitely not a myth. Even my unit has one with a steel core instead of a ceramic one. So we are talking right now about false marketing, because the spec sheets they released, they were talking about ceramic heat breaks. Well, here's your proof. It didn't in the first batch. I have no clue what's up with that. I am not going to bother them asking them why. If you have one of these nozzles and you can show to them that there is a steel insert instead of a ceramic one, they are going to send you the new one. But this never should happen in the first place. So depending on the stock that you are buying, depending from the country, the company that bought the units, if you are still having a first batch unit, you are probably going to have one with a steel insert, which is very unfortunate. What we also can see, this is the first time I removed the sock. Now the metal shield inside, so there is a little clip piece that holds in the heater on the heater core. Yeah, it's in the sock and this is now super brittle. So how handy it's going to be to replace the nozzle every time you want to do something different, I don't know. But I guess you're better off buying a few of these heated socks if you are planning to do a lot of nozzle changes. So you have seen the print quality of the printer. We could see that the nozzle in my unit is also not the nozzle that they advertised. That brings me to the next point, which is going to be that almost everything on this printer is going to be proprietary. The only open source thing in this printer is going to be firmware. It is going to be Clipper, but it is going to be a dirty version of Clipper, which means that if you're going to go into the console from Fluid and you're going to try to do an update because it tells you there is an update, you will brick the complete system. Why they do it, I have no clue. They are also running a very old version of Clipper and all of that. So yeah, we can see on the rhetoric and everything is updatable. It is working pretty nice. So I don't see any reason why they are doing the things that they are doing, but just note that the Clipper On here is a dirty version, and the only way to update this is to use the official firmware from Qidi. So all the rest of this printer is proprietary, which means you will not be able to get into the step files, download something to reprint. So if something breaks, you are completely dependent on Qidi to replace it. I would like to see a move to more open source-ish, that we have some basic components that we can change out, like this freaking heater. Also, something I have heard is that when you are starting to have problems with your motion system, getting the motion system out of this thing is going to be an absolute nightmare. So the print head right in here is also something I would like to have seen open sourced. I would really like to reprint the complete carriage because I have stripped bolts. I can do some redesigning so I can do brass inserts and all of that. But yeah, all that stuff is locked behind Qidi. They are not giving us the files to do so. So Qidi, if you're watching this, I would like to see you open up some of these files to do some basic repairs. Then one of the things we could see is that they changed something in the print head. We now have a filament color, and they also made a little hatch between the extruder and the hot end that if you are grinding your filament or there's a clog for any reason, you can remove it that way. I had to use it once, it was all my fault, but right now you have that option to use the hatch to open it up, and there is a filament color. If you press it, you can just pull your spool of wire out of there. Now, if you are going to push the replace filament button, it is going to move to the corner, cut the filament for you, and then you can just pull out the wire. So we can already see the cut function working on the Qidi Plus 4. Now it's just a matter of time before the Qidi box is going to be released. I think it's going to be in the next 2 months, but from the sounds I'm hearing, I don't hear a lot, so I don't think it's going to be really soon right now. We already talked about a few of the mods. You can pick and choose what you want. The spool holder is something new from Qidi. This is way more sturdy than everything else they have done. There's nothing wrong, but I don't use it. And the reason why I don't use it is because everything in my shop is going to be in these boxes. Believe it or not, in my place everything is super humid. It is raining for 3 to 4 months straight, and we have a relative moisture content in our homes of 60+%. So yeah, everything is super moist, and even leaving PLA for a few weeks is going to ruin it. So yeah, for me the spool holder is not an option, but no, if you're not in a super humid climate, this spool holder will do the trick. Another thing we can see is that spare parts for the Qidi Plus 4 in the beginning was very sparse. The only thing you could find was the same flex plate like I'm holding in my hand, and a few different nozzles from a 0.4 to a 0.6 bimetal, and now they also released one of those tungsten ones, which is probably the one that I'm going to buy because yeah, mine also has the steel heat break. Why not upgrade to a ceramic one, right? Depending on where you live and where you buy your parts from, it is probably going to be fairly hard to get the OG material from Qidi. If you're from Europe, 3D Jake has a bunch of these flex plates. I have used them quite a lot. You could see it on the back of that one. They have quite a lot of flex plates. I have used them all, and I can say one thing is that they work great and they don't cost a fortune. The only thing that you will notice is that if you are going to place this flex plate into the Qidi Plus 4, which is one for the K1 Max, it is going to stick out for a few millimeters. Not a big issue, in my opinion. It even helps to peel off the flex plate because you have a little bit hanging out. So if you want to have spare flex plates, 3D Jake is selling these for 30 euros a piece. You have the honeycomb version, then you have the regular PEI, and then you have the textured ones. You have carbon, you have this one, and they all seem to hold up pretty well. I have done a few hundred hours on all of these flex plates. They just work perfectly fine. The only thing, like I said, they will stick out at the end, but that is not an issue. Another cool thing I want to share is going to be the 3D Jake Easy Adhesive. Now, except for the silly name, all my plates are now coated with the Easy Adhesive from 3D Jake, and the only thing I can say is this is completely worth it, and I'm going to tell you why. First of all, you have a big build plate. You are going to use a lot of filament, like this print right over here. This is a 24-hour print, which was about 400 grams of filament. If you are going to have failed supports because of that, you can throw the whole thing away, which is a real shame. Now, there are quite a few things you can apply on these plates, from glue sticks to hairsprays. This thing is very affordable, and the cool thing about this is that when you notice that the shtick is getting away, just a new coat of this is going to fix that problem. For instance, right over here you can see there is a vague spot right over here, which is going to be the parts I have printed on, and the glue is starting to disappear. Just a new coat on this build plate and it is good to go. No need to wash it. So every plate right over here has a coat or 6 0.67 of this spray. Now eventually you will need to wash your plates, and for the easy adhesive spray you will need some alcohol like a strong IPA. Let it soak for a few seconds, wipe it off, repeat until your plate is clean. Like I told you, my machine is a little bit spotty on its first layer. I could see a tremendous amount of first layer fails just because the squish was not good enough. Well, this spray came in very handy and basically it made it a non-issue. So my opinion, if you don't want to babysit this thing every time you do a print, a little spray of this will give you the ease of mind that you can just walk away. So thank you 3D Jake for sending all this stuff for me to test out. If you want to check out the stuff from 3D Jake, they have provided me with a voucher. I am not earning anything. I will leave a link down below. So it is all for you. I think it's about 50% off on all the products that they are selling. All right, enough rambling. What do you think about the Qidi Plus 4? Do you think it's worth it? Well, in my opinion, this is probably one of the best bangs for the bucks that you can get. Right now, they are selling it for $7.99 and it hasn't changed a thing. Now, they did some little 20 bucks off or something like on Black Friday, but yeah, the price is pretty steady on this machine. They know they have a winner. The only problem is going to be that they are just self-sabotaging them on every release that they are doing. So Qidi, for the love of everything holy, do proper testing before you release a new machine, which is probably what we are going to see in the AMS. They already stated it out loud that the next things that they are going to do, that they will try to reach out to users like you in the Discord, which is a good thing because yeah, I'm a reviewer. This is a day one review unit and there was just so many things wrong with that that I couldn't recommend it at the end. But right now, if you're thinking about buying this printer, everything is mostly ironed out, which is a good thing. And right now, for the build volume that's in there, yeah, there is just nothing that is going to beat this Qidi Plus 4, unfortunately. So let me know down below what you think about it. In my opinion, this is right now a safe thing to buy. If you are looking for a big volume with not a lot of money, that has the capability to print PPS, ABS, and all those exotic materials, the Qidi will deliver. Just know that everything I ranted about in this video, yeah, some of these are still a concern. So that's going to be it. This was my final opinion about the Qidi Plus 4. I think it's great, just bad that they are shooting themselves in the foot every time they release a product. Well, that's going to be it. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure that you subscribe to the channel because the next thing we're probably going to do on the Qidi is going to be the box or the AMS, and we are going to put a lot of filament through it. So hopefully this is also going to be a great competitor. So it's more than time that Qidi releases the Qidi box. All right, that's going to be it. Thank you for watching, and guys, I'll see you in the next one.